Hello and welcome to another episode of Bachelor Pad Theater. And if you're wondering again where the music went, Sony Music Entertainment bought the rights out and now we can't use it anymore, so no more fun for us. We're going to be reading an excerpt as this is Bachelor Pad Theater, it's for men, it's for bachelors. We'll be reading an excerpt from The Black Man's Guide Out of Poverty. It'll be a lengthy excerpt, but I think an important one. So if you go pour a drink, pause it now and pour a drink, then come back with your martini. Previous to the Great Society, the basic unit of society was the family, and the nucleus of the family was the man. The man was the breadwinner, he was the head of the household, and he was the final arbiter of all major decisions. However, with all these rights came great responsibilities. He had to make sure his family didn't starve. He had to work extra hours if money was short. He had to fix the car. He had to repair the house, keeping it in good order, ensuring his family was safe from weather, thieves, and all other external threats. He had to discipline the children, train them, and instruct them. And if necessary, he was to die for them should any member of his family be threatened. In exchange for this, he was given not only the love, but the loyalty and support of his wife, as well as the right to raise his children as he saw fit. But now, for the first time in U.S. history, the government was supplanting his role. A woman no longer needed a man, not because she had a job or was pursuing a career, but because the government would cut her a check. And not only would the state cut her a check, but it would cut her more checks the more kids she had. Soon it wasn't the husband paying for health insurance, rent, food, education, and gas, but the state through its ever-increasing numbers of social programs, all designed to help those poor single mothers and their children. The ultimate consequence of these well-intended programs was that it destroyed the basic unit of society, the family, by removing the man and replacing him with a government check. Sadly, this removal of men from society resulted in the aforementioned unintended consequences, which have done nothing short of wreak unimaginable destruction and devastation upon U.S. families, especially those in the black community. The biggest casualties are arguably children. No longer required to stay together for the betterment of their children, women can now simply divorce their husbands on grounds as flimsy as, "I'm not happy." And it is not so much that divorce law changed, allowing women to divorce more easily, as much as it is the knowledge that the government will financially provide for her and her children, making the man doubly unnecessary. Even worse, the fact 70% of black children are born out of wedlock suggests black women do not even view men as a potential father, husband, or head of household type figure. They simply view him as a sperm donor, leaving said roles to the government. Regardless of being a single mom on purpose or through divorce, the children are not raised in a stable, reliable nuclear family. Another way children suffer is due to the lack of the father's presence in the household. Here a whole host of problems arise without the presence of a dad to raise his children. Since there is no ultimate authority capable of physically forcing discipline, behavior, and respect upon children, they grow up ill-reared, disrespectful, borderline feral, increasing chances of crime and lowering chances of a good career. Children are also reared in a skewed manner, as 100% of the rearing is done by the mother or other predominantly female elementary school teachers. This not only leaves them ill-prepared when it comes time to dealing with the male halves of society, but results in weak, pacified, whiny kids who are emotional, thin-skinned, and incapable of criticism or challenge. And then, parentheses, just look at today's modern hipsters or social justice warriors. Finally, children just simply suffer emotionally and psychologically without having their dad around, no matter what various authorities or experts say. Cutting men out of the family also affected the finances of not just the family unit, but the country. Previous to the replacement, men were at least a control valve when it came to women's spending. There was a family budget, there was limited income, and you could not just buy anything you wanted. The family had to live within their means, teaching everybody fiscal discipline. However, with this control valve gone and a metaphorical blank government check available, women are now allowed to spend money however they please. This has resulted not only in instances where single moms buy designer clothes but not food for their babies, but an enormous increase in taxation, which men disproportionately pay. Alas, men are still effectively footing the bill, but with no control or say on how said monies are spent. Akin to frivolous spending, government replacing men has also allowed women to become more promiscuous. Obviously, a real husband would adamantly refuse his wife to have sex with other men. But a government check is perfectly accepting of an open relationship. This allows women the option of having their cake and eating it too. Not only can they have children without the annoyance of being married and answering to a husband, but a government husband substitute will allow her to sleep with as many men as she wants. This does not so much mean women will nail every hot bad boy, thug that comes along, though they will. as much as it makes settling down and marrying a less attractive option, as well as makes divorce a more attractive one. Worse than promiscuity, however, is just how much government programs have spoiled women, making them completely unmarriageable. If you were raised with a father, you were likely held to his standards and expectations. Additionally, you were likely taught to consider others, respect others, and how to get along with others, especially men. And the reason your father taught you these things was not so that you would become altruistic, but so you could function in the real world. Purely selfish people cannot function in the real world. You need to consider others and adhere to a certain level of ethics, standards, and expectations. But a government check has no such standards. A government check has no such expectations. A government check is merely a non-sentient piece of paper incapable of rearing, disciplining, or imparting wisdom. So, anyway, just an excerpt from The Black Man's Guide Out of Poverty. Obviously, you don't have to be black, male, or in poverty to read it, but it is intended for that segment of my readership and demographic, as it were. And if you like to read any other stuff that I have, you can always go to my blog, Captain Capitalism, at .blogspot.com. We have a podcast called The Clary Podcast, and then there is always my consulting division, Asshole Consulting, at www.assholeconsulting.com. Toodles.